So now students, coming to the first chapter, definition, where we are going to cover definition and we are also going to understand the general pharma concepts. So first of all, understand that pharmacology is basically pharmacon plus logy, means it is drug. Pharmacon means drug, logy means science. So it is a science of drugs. It is a study about the effects of drugs on the body. Understand who is called as the father of pharmacology. Father of pharmacology is Oswald Schmidberg. Now he and his students in late 19th century worked on the concepts of pharmacology. Now there are two important differences, what I must say, concepts and very important basics of pharmacology. The first one is pharmacodynamics and the second one is pharmacokinetics. Now what is pharmacodynamic? Dynamic means effect. So pharmacodynamic means what the drug does to the body. So the drug, when you take it inside, it has got some biochemical effects, it has got some physiological effects. So that all will be studied under pharmacodynamics. While what is pharmacokinetics? What the body does to the drug. That means when the drug is ingested or it goes into the circulation, then what is the body functions doing on the drug? What are the effects that are being produced on the drug? So those things are absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion. So we'll be taking these two concepts in detail once we complete the general pharmacology. Now students, let's understand a very important definition, and that is the definition of drug. What is a drug? This is, I'll say, the basic that you have to understand, right? Now a drug is basically, you have to write here the WHO definition that was given in 1996. So a drug is any substance or product that is used or intended to use to modify or explore the physiological states or physiological systems or pathological states for the benefit of the recipient, right? So this is the definition of drug as per WHO, and it is important that you remember it. Any substance or product that is used or is intended to be used to modify or explore the physiological systems or pathological states for the benefit of the recipient. Here, the most important thing is the benefit component. You give a substance to a person with the intention of treating that person with the intention of removing the disease from that person. So that is what makes it as a drug. Okay. Now, this term drug is also being used illicitly, like, as an addictive or as a drug of abuse or as a drug of illicit usage. So here, this basically derogatory meaning is referred to a substance which basically is addicting, has got some physical or psychological dependence producing habit, and that is basically the drugs which are available in the market. What we understand by the term drug, here is a substance which will basically promote health. So here we are talking about any chemical component, anything, any entity which is basically used to promote health, or it can be having a therapeutic effect, or it can be having a diagnostic effect also. So sometimes some contrast agents are used in MRI and in cath lab basically for diagnosis purpose, but they are also drugs. They are also chemical entities which are important for benefit of the patient, and they have a beneficial use, right? So this is a very important definition of drug which you have to remember, and this often comes as a short note also, so you should be able to write it properly. Now the next definition that we usually come across is called as pharmacotherapeutics, right? Now pharmacotherapeutics, as the name itself suggests, basically it is the application, like physics is the application of maths, so it is the application of pharmacology in diseases, right? For prevention of that particular disease or mitigation or cure of that particular disease. So that is called as pharmacotherapeutics. Let's go to the second definition. Now, second definition which we have to study is what is chemotherapy. Chemotherapy usually is treatment of systemic infections, and the term is also used for the treatment of malignancy or the cancer, right? Then the next definition that we have is clinical pharmacology. Now, what is clinical pharmacology? It is basically the study of drugs in human beings, right? That is called as clinical pharmacology. When we use drugs in animals, then it is called as preclinical pharmacology. So preclinical, wherever the term comes, means animal studies, and whenever we talk about clinical pharmacology, it means that we are going to study the usage of drugs in human beings, right? Then some other definitions, very simple definitions, they are that what is pharmacy? Pharmacy is basically the art and science of compounding and dispensing the drugs, right? So pharmacy is the art and science of compounding and dispensing drugs or preparing suitable dosage forms for administration in man or animals, right? Then we have another definition which is called as toxicology. So what is toxicology? Toxicology is basically the study of poisonous effects of drugs, or what you call a study of poisons and other chemicals. So study of poisons or chemicals is called as toxicology, right? Then we have another definition, that is pharmacoepidemiology. So what is pharmacoepidemiology? It is basically the study of drugs in human population, right? Then another definition that we have is basically chronotherapeutics. Now what is chronotherapeutics? It is basically the optimization of drug effects with regard to what? Biological rhythm. So chrono, as you know, that it means time. So time ke hisab se the effect of drugs. So for example, you must have seen that patients of blood pressure usually take the tablet for BP control in the early morning as soon as they get up, empty stomach, right? Or you must have seen, or of course you will see in coming, when you will study pharmacology in detail, that statins, which are basically lipid lowering agents, right? So these lipid lowering agents, they are usually taken in night. So this is something which is related to chronotherapeutics, right? Then let's come to the nature of drugs. Now this was about the definitions. The next topic that we take is nature of drugs. Now all drugs are chemical entities. We all know this, right? All drugs are chemical entities, and they are either simple or they are having a complex structure. Now some of the drugs we know they are solid, some of them are liquid, some of them are can be inhaled also. So they are basically gas also, right? So where have these drugs come from? So some of the drugs, they have come from plants, right? Then some of the drugs have come from animals, some from microbes, some from minerals, some are minerals or mineral oils, then some are semi-synthetic or synthetic, and then some are developed in the laboratory by recombinant DNA technology, right? Now if we talk about plant sources, so plant sources may basically the whatever is the extract of the plant, the biological active substance which is obtained from the plant, and since a long time, since immemorial Ayurveda, if you see, it's all based on plant-based medicines. So chemically the drugs can be alkaloids. For example, we have atropine, which is very famously derived from Atropa belladonna. Morphine is there. Then they can be glycosides. So in this we have like cardiac glycoside, which is digoxin, which is a cardiac glycoside and obtained from the plant. Then they can be oils. You know, they are viscous liquids which are insoluble in water. So for example, we have sesame oil, right? Then essential oils are also there. So these are volatile oils obtained from flowers or leaves, like we have clove oil, right? So these are some plant derived products. Then from animals, then animal products may we usually consist of adrenaline or insulin, which was earlier used from the pork, or liver extract for vitamin B12, right? Fish oils. Then from microbes, many antibiotics are produced from microbes, like we know the antibiotic penicillium notatum से निकलती है penicillin, actinomycin D, all these drugs. Then some enzymes also are usually microbe derived. Then we have minerals, or mineral like we have iron, calcium, lithium, iodine, aluminium. So these are various minerals which are used, or mineral oils are there, like liquid paraffin, which is used as a laxative, right? Or paraffin otherwise used as an emollient. Then semi-synthetic, we have, you know, a modification of the natural substance like amikacin, which is an antibiotic, and it is chemically synthesized. Then synthetic, though, we have a lot of molecules which are made in the laboratory. So almost like lot of synthetic drugs are there in the market. And then we have biotechnology or recombinant DNA technology से बना हुआ, like we have insulin or we have growth hormone. So a lot of drugs which are made by the recombinant techniques. So these are the nature of drugs, nature and sources of drugs. Now coming to the next part, that is called as drug nomenclature. Now in drug nomenclature, we study about the naming of the drug. So the first way a drug is named is called as a chemical name. So this is basically a drug or a substance chemically, okay? Then the second name is called as non-proprietary name. Now this is basically a name which is given by a competent regulatory body or a scientific body, like that is USA, and that is United States adopted names, or BAN, that is British adopted names. In general parlance, they are also basically called as generic names. So a generic name is basically used in the place of non-proprietary name, and generic means basically, actually generic means the chemical or the pharmacological group or the genus. But there is a misnomer. The drug name which is given by the competent regulatory body is now invariably called as a generic name. The third name is called as proprietary name, and this is also named as or called as brand name. Now the brand name of the drug is basically dependent upon the pharma company which makes it. So one drug may have multiple brand names because there are multiple companies which are making that compound, right? So now what is the importance of knowing this? We study about drug nomenclature and non-proprietary and proprietary names because a prescription, that is when you prescribe the medicines to the patients, they should always be prescribed in generic name, right? They should not be prescribed in a brand name. For example, you have to prescribe paracetamol, a very simple drug which is used for fever, right? Now it has brand names, that is Crocin, right? Then another brand name is Calpol. Then another brand name is Dolo, because of the different pharma companies which are making it. So what will be the difference? Usually drugs with different brand names, usually they may have biological, they may be biologically non-equivalent. That means Dolo 600 and Calpol 600 and Crocin 600 may not have exact 600 milligram of paracetamol inside them. So there may be a difference in between the composition, making them pharmacologically inequivalent and biologically inequivalent drugs. Okay. So this was about the drug nomenclature. Now the next concept that we study is called as prescription drugs, and there is something called as non-prescription drugs, right? So now what does it mean? So prescription drugs are those drugs which drugs which are available on a with a pharmacy only with a prescription. That means when you will show the prescription to the pharmacist, only then he will give those drugs to you. So drugs under schedule G, H, H1 and X of the drug and cosmetic rules, here these are the drugs which are basically available with the prescription. Now schedule X is basically covering the narcotics and psychotropic agents, and so when they are prescribed, the doctor will always write them like this, NRX. This is how the drug has to be written when it is falling under schedule X. Then H, basically drugs which are available only with a prescription, and they are prescribed as RX, right? Now drugs which are not required, for which a prescription is not required, what are they? They are called as OTC drugs. What is the meaning of OTC? OTC means over the counter. Over the counter drugs means those drugs which can be legally obtained from a pharmacy without a prescription. And there is no separate category for the drugs which can be given as OTC drugs, right? So there is no separate category. Apart from these drugs, schedule G, H, H1 and X, all the other drugs, these drugs cannot be considered as OTC drugs. Remaining other drugs can be given as OTC drugs, right? Then there are some drugs which are called as orphan drugs. What are orphan drugs? Orphan drugs are not orphan. They are basically drugs which are used for rare diseases. So these are the drugs which are used for rare diseases. They are called as orphan drugs, right? Now what are the chances of that rare disease? Less than 5 lakh persons, right? A drug, so an orphan drug is defined as a drug which is intended to treat a condition which affects not more than 5 lakhs in India. Now these drugs, what is the importance? They may be life-saving. Why life-saving? Because they are basically for rare diseases, and rare disease agar kisi ko hota hai to usually it is life compromising disease. So then a drug which can be useful in that particular disease is life-saving. For example, let's see the names of drugs. Like we have nilotinib, then we have bevacizumab, then some other examples like bortezomib or clofazimine. So these are just some examples of drugs which are used in rare diseases, and so they are called as orphan drugs, right? The last that we are doing in this category are drug compendia. Now basically these are compilations, or what you can call as a books of information on drugs, right? Now these are basically compilations in the form of monograph. They are not going very much into the detail of the concept, mechanism of action, etc. So here they are of two types. One is called as pharmacopoeia and one is called as formularies, right? So pharmacopoeias, they basically contain the description of chemical structure. Then they also have about the information about the physical characteristics, the solubility, the identification methods, storage, etc. These are mostly helpful for the drug manufacturers. Those who are manufacturing the drugs, for them it is useful. It is useful for the regulatory authorities. So like we have Indian pharmacopoeia, then we have British pharmacopoeia, we have European pharmacopoeia, we have United States pharmacopoeias, right? So pharmacopoeias are basically compilations of the chemical structure and all these informations. Then formularies, they are basically in the form of booklets, and they consist of information like dose, then dosage forms, then contraindications, precautions, interactions, adverse effects, all these things, right? So These are the formularies. So the various formularies like we have is British National Formulary, then we have National Formulary of India. So these are the formularies which basically have the informations. Then there is something called as Martindale. Now what is Martindale? This is basically a complete drug reference, right? So these are published every 2 to 3 years from the Royal Pharmacological Society of Great Britain, and this is an exhaustive compilation of all the medicines which are registered all over the world, right? So these are important compendiums by which the information related to a drug is known to people. So in this chapter we complete till here. Next chapter we'll be starting with the essential drugs, rational use of drugs, then the dosage forms and route of administrations. Okay.